I just want to say that this program is a starting point for the history of the Island Library. So I was not here for all of the history of the Island Library, but you folks have been here and other people have been here. And so reaching out to those folks, these are the things that I have learned from talking to people and from reading the archives. And so it's just a starting point. And so I'm so excited because there's been so much information I've been reading through, and it's just been wonderful to read through all of this information about the Island Library and how people have contributed to it. Here is our Island Library. This sign has been with the library for a long time. It was designed by Connie Hubbard, and it was carved by Joe Arnett. And this is also Connie Hubbard's little design there with the leaves, and it was on Island Library stationery for a long time. So just to notice that that is a part of the design of the Island Library, and that sign is a wonderful keepsake for us. So this was the library from 1946. So the Whatcom County Library System started in 1944. That's when it was formed. And in 1946, the Island Library was formed, and it was stored on a shelf in the post office. And so from 1946 to 1963, that's where the library was stored. And it was a shelf. But as you can see, 1963, quoted in the January 1980 LICC newsletter, Tubby said, "Since our local post office has been elevated to a third-class office, we find we are in need of the space in the hallway lobby, which is now used by the County Rural Library." And I just learned today that Tubby's real name was Lorraine, and his wife's name was Nyletfa. So that's so interesting. But he went by Tubby. And then from 1963 to 1979, the library was served by the Bookmobile. And we are actually wondering who these girls are. And if anybody knows, we would love to learn. And we're wondering who they are. And then from 1980, well, it was actually just 1980, the library was actually stored in the Beach store, and it was called the Beach branch of the Whatcom County Library System. And this is actually a photo by Ed Lowe as part of his Sleeping Cellist series. So he had a couple of photos that he did. I think there were 4 or 5 in the series of the Sleeping Cellist. So you see the Sleeping Cellist there, but you can also see the books right behind there. And so they had a couple shelves that they dedicated to the Whatcom County Library System. But later in that year, they applied for a liquor license. And then they applied to the Whatcom County Library Board saying, you know, we've applied for this liquor license, and we can either keep the library here, or you can choose to remove the library. And the Whatcom County Library Board chose to remove the library from the Beach store. And I actually have a little section to read here from Joan Stewart. She was the owner of the Beach Store Cafe. And she says, "Are you aware the Beach Store, a combination restaurant and deli, houses in one corner the Beach branch of the Whatcom County Library, which serves Lummi Island? I recently applied to the Liquor Control Commission for a license to sell beer and wine by the glass in the restaurant and by the package to go in the Beach Store. There has been some expression of concern by some members of the community relating to the juxtaposition of the library and a restaurant deli which serves beer and wine. The liquor control agent has requested that I obtain a letter of understanding from the library board." And then she suggests the following 3 different situations, which are A, the library board does not object to Beach Store obtaining a liquor license, or B, the library board agrees to work with the store, and during the open hours of the library, they would not serve liquor. And there were 3 different situations. The library board decided to move the library. So, so this was 1980 was the beach branch, and that was about it. Let's see. Oh, and I had highlighted, this was from the Whatcom County Library Board meeting minutes. Miss Stewart, the owner of the beach store, asked that the library branch be withdrawn. So now comes FOIL, the Friends of the Island Library, who have pretty much taken care of the library all through these years. And these are the presidents. This is a list of the presidents, but it doesn't list the other members of FOIL. And I didn't have that list of all of the members of FOIL, and I would love to have that list. And I don't have pictures of all of the members of FOIL, all of the people that have really contributed to making the library what it is today. And so I just really want to thank these presidents, but also all of the board members that served with them. And I'm sorry that I don't know all of those names. And one thing is that Joan sent me is that Dawn Van Valkenburg, she remembered telling me about some other people he rode with on the ferry together, decided that they wanted to try to get a library on Lummi. So it was just a conversation on the ferry. And they figured out that that was something they wanted to do. But the other thing is that Don Van Valkenburg, he's still alive. He lives in Bellingham in a nursing home. But he wrote a lot of articles for the Tome and for the library, and they are hilarious. He was a really good writer, and he was really funny. And I work at the Ferndale Library as well. And one of my coworkers, her name is Krista Hunter, she worked at Village Books for years. And we were just talking, and I was telling her about this program I was going to do about the Lummi Island history and the library history. And she said, oh, there was this guy I knew from Lummi Island, and he was a monk for a couple years, and then he lived on Lummi Island, and he was super interested in libraries. And I was like, do you mean Dawn? And she was like, yes, it was Dawn. So he was such a fan of Village Books that she had become such good friends with him and had tea with him all the time. He was just such a lover of libraries and books. And so I just find that amazing that, you know, it's not just Lummi Island, he was known around the county. Okay, so from 1980 to 1993, so the Friends of the Island Library decided that they would like a permanent library space. And so Jerry and Maria Anderson decided that they could loan this space. It's the house behind the post office as the Island Library. And see our sign there, up there? And part of the deal was that Maria would get to be the librarian. So she was the librarian from 1980 to 1985. And she invited a couple other ladies to help her. And one of them was Carly Tucker, and one of them was Kathleen Neese. And those ladies have served the island for all the years. So it's wonderful that they've been working here. This is just another picture of a program, and you can see Jerry Anderson there in the doorway. It was a magician performing. This is a picture of the inside of that Library. And then there's a picture of Maria. She visited the library the first year I started here. So it was 2019. She visited. So this is when Foyle, the Friends of the Island Library, decided that they needed a permanent position, a permanent house. And they found Les Shanahan's house. And this is the house right here. And I have heard so many amazing stories about Les Shanahan, and I would love to hear more. So one of my questions is, what job did Les Shanahan have? And do you have any input? Joan on the ferry. Ed?
He was also a deputy Whatcom County sheriff.
He was on the sheriff. He was a sheriff, yep.
Artist.
He was an artist. This is one of his pieces, right here.
Printer.
He was a printer. He had a letterpress. He letterpressed poetry for people. And he was also a farrier. He took care of horses. And out on the tree, just right outside, you can see an actual line around the tree from where there was a chain for years that he would chain the horses to. So he was kind of a Renaissance man. And he had this house, and he sold it to the library, which is amazing too. So, but to do that, the Foyle did a huge number of fundraising events. And I have to congratulate Buffy Lapof for doing the majority of this work. She did progressive dinners. So this is an example. And then they also did garden tours around the island. And they did cruises on ships. All kinds of fundraisers so that they could get this property for the library. And this is actually just a promissory note secured by deed of trust. These are 3 families that each gave $30,000 to the library to buy this property. So $90,000 in total. And I just wanted to recognize Nancy and Robin Burnett, Dooley Brown and Lorraine Kovalenko, DDA and Martin Lutz for the money that they gave to the library. And so a lot of it was thanks to them for making those promises. There was some other fundraising that happened. Andre Brewer created this design, and they sold it as t-shirts and bags. This was another big event that I want to know more about. A Christmas Carol, people talk about it a lot. And so I would love to know more about it. So there's a check from Paul Davis, who was the treasurer at that time, and he wrote out the check for this house. And then there's also the building permit to convert the house into a library. And this is also a Washington Library Association award for the Friends of the Library for doing such a wonderful job of getting this house for the library. And so I just wanted to share that award again, because, and Joan, thank you for being here. Is there any other friends of the library here? I think you might represent them tonight. So thank you so much. Jenny and Alan, thank you so much. This award is for the Friends. This was the mortgage burning. After they paid off the mortgage, they had an amazing event. They had a mortgage burning. We have raised $209,000 in 6 years. The original cost of this property was $149,000, not including refurbishing costs necessary to build the building up to library standards. Less than $5,000 came from corporate donors. The remaining balance was raised by us, Islanders, families, and friends. Wonderful job. This was Carl Hansen. The Polly and Carl Hansen room, meeting room is named after them. He was playing the bagpipes for the mortgage burning. This was also just an interesting plan that I found. So this is the house layout. So that you've got the study, the deck into the library. The kitchen was right when you walked in, right where our circulation area is. There was a bedroom, a studio, utilities, and then this was the new library. But for many, many years, when you walked in, the kitchen was right in the middle of the library. And when I worked here first, that was in 2000, now I'm forgetting, 2006. It was like, yeah, 12 years ago. Carly always had something cooking in the kitchen. You know, she would have squash cooking, she would have coffee on the pot, she would have cupcakes baking. There was so much going on in that kitchen. And it was just part of the library, and it was quite wonderful. But then when they did the remodel, the kitchen moved, and it's still a wonderful kitchen. It's just not right in the center of the library. So here's a picture from, this is when they started remodeling this house into the new library. And there were so many volunteers. And this is where I don't know all of the names, and I wish that I did. But I'm so thankful to all of them for what they did. Here's a picture of a grand opening celebration, and you can see Buffy there in the middle. And I would love to know the names of all of these other people. So if anyone can help me out with those, that would be great. And of course, the library had a second story. And it was that second story where I had my first experience with Lummi Island history. That's where I got to scan and document all of the ReefNet heritage information for the library. And so I have very fond memories of that second story, but also of the library. I mean, it was just a wonderful, welcoming place. And I want to say something about the fountain that's out there. So the island is also a repository of some historical information. This fountain was part of the Lummi Bay Packing Company. It was on their property, and it ended up going to a family member in Bellingham. And Buffy saw it, ran into it, and asked them if they would like to donate it back to the island. And they did. And then a group of people took a huge, big satellite dish. And I saw some pictures with Mike Moy in them. And they took this satellite dish and created a new pool for the new, the new fountain location at the library. And so out in our yard is a big satellite dish. Right now it has rocks in it. It's not running water, but it's the fountain from the Lummi Bay Packing Company, right here at the island library. But we also host the island archives, and that's thanks to Paul Davis. And so I just want to thank him as well for keeping the library in his thoughts and having the archives here. A couple of pictures from the early days of the library. I just love this picture of the kids. It's like a kid picking his nose and a girl with a book on her head and a girl looking for books. That's just wonderful. And, you know, people, I think that was still the grand opening day and people hanging out at the library. These 3 windows were right over here. We've got Kathleen, Carly, and Jonike, 2004. Visions of Snap-E Dragon, the Literosaurus. So while they were raising money to purchase this building, Snap-E Dragon was built by Dooley Brown and, let's see, Lorraine Kovalenko. And they built him to hold the thermometer that was raising the money for the library. And so, I mean, the snow, that's Jerry Brown working. Jerry Brown has taken care of Snappy for years and years. That's the one with him holding the thermometer. And then the one with the pieces is the one that I created in the last couple of years for kids to put together as a craft. And he was named by Sandy Ann Harmony, and Christopher Eklund Nunn. They were 5th graders at the time, and they won a competition by naming him. So thanks, Snappy, for being our mascot. And then it comes to the renovation. So the FOIL members have been so active over the years and decided that because of ADA issues, they needed to renovate the library. So they started raising money. And they did a lot more fundraising events, and they were able to renovate the library to what you know today. And so this beam right here is where the old house ended, and this is all extension here into the front. And I can't help but mention Buffy and Mary Boyer's displays in the case. From 1994, they have been making these amazing displays in our display case consistently for all of these years. And they're beautiful, and they gather things from all over the island, and then they send them all back home. So it's just amazing what they do there. And this is where I would like to start the video of Carly and Buffy.
Hi, I'm Carly Tucker.
I'm Buff Lapof.
Sisters.
in arms. In arms. And Carly was our head librarian for how many years, Carly?
36 about. And Buff was our library instigator and creator and secretary for many years.
Of the FOIL group.
Yes, and welcome to Island Library. Here's our sign that was...
Oh, that's a memorable patron. Connie Hubbard from years gone by was a calligrapher, and she made that beautiful sign, and Joe Arnett carved it, and it's
Jerry
been with
Brown
us.
Must have
redone it a few times.
Finished it a time or two. So that's been in many. It was at our old building and got moved over here. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to keep it undercover and make it last.
Yep. There was a branch that opened in 46 and closed in 63.
Okay, that would be the one across the street from the school. Tubby Ford lived there.
He was the postmaster too.
Yeah.
And they had a little lending library, like right on the side in there where the post office was. A shelf.
Mm-hmm. And it closed because I think they upgraded the post office to a higher level, and there wasn't room.
A rural district something, and then they closed it, but I don't know what happened then. The earliest memory of Lummi Island Library for me was the bookmobile in '75, and it made 2 stops, I think every other week, and it was across from our post office now, in front of the Grange, and down at the marina.
And I remember in front of the school.
Oh, okay.
Meeting it there too.
And you remember the school,
but I think Kevin Harris was the
right. Carly thinks it was Kevin all those years, which is pretty funny. I just remember it was like unbelievable what they had and what you could get. And I had moved here, and I lived in this little cabin without electricity and running water. And the bookmobile, I was a library user my whole life, all across the country. And you could ask for anything. I mean, they had a lot of good books, but if I asked for something, like I hadn't read a lot of classics, I'd missed classics growing up, some of them, and if I asked them the next week or in 2 weeks, there they were for me. Even before, like, interlibrary loan, it's like he always had great books, and I don't even know if there was an amount you could take, because I just remember taking home a bundle of books.
Do you think we signed them out then, like in that little log?
Yeah.
You know?
I think that was cards. I think, well, it was the Gaylord, right?
Even in the bookmobile, that's what I can't remember.
I think it was.
I don't know if there was electricity to it or
I
anything.
think they did have a Gaylord.
They must have had something, but you signed a card.
Well, if there was a book and you'd put your name in the book, and then that would correspond to a number maybe that was the Gaylord would stamp the date, and then maybe you I don't know.
I remember the lineup outside, like moms and kids and other people, and like you waited to go in, or you just waited till it wasn't maybe so crowded, but it had a lot in that old bookmobile. I mean, you see pictures of it. Does it even exist anymore, that old bookmobile?
No, I don't think so.
No.
But I think I drove that bookmobile up to Birch Bay to a sale, to a book sale thing at a program.
Wow.
Yeah, that's weird. Long time ago.
So I was the bookmobile for me. What about you? When you
Well, that's my first memory, is going down to the bookmobile by the school.
by the school,
Yeah.
okay. Gosh, and I don't.
And I don't think I went to, and then it started up at the beach store. And I think that's because Polly Hansen was the library director and had lived here on the island. And so she was really gung-ho about having a library branch, I believe, you know, because we'd had one before. And so she talked to some group of people, Don von Volkenberg, who will be coming in, and maybe Norma Bowl, do you think she was? Or Jean Finney? And there was a group then that started a friends group, and Don will know more about this, I think. He'll be able to fill in that time period. And so it wasn't in the beach store for long. And I think Joan Stewart, who had the beach store then, maybe was part of getting the library.
Yeah,
there.
so when you look, when the beach store, it was like all the tables and the food, but then they had on the south side of inside the building, there were shelves with books, and you could check them out. But it was because of Jean Finney, I believe, and some others who felt like that kids shouldn't be checking out books where people were having like pizza and beer. It just, the two didn't go together, and that it should be a separate thing. And that's really what happened. I mean, it was kind of a big brouhaha on the island, because at least it was a place to have a library, but the whole beer thing seemed kind of crazy, but they got their way.
Yeah,
and it was gone.
And so when Jerry comes, he'll maybe be able to tell you more too, because that's when he owned the building there.
Behind the post office.
Yeah, the post office was right across from the beach store. And then they had a house rental behind the post office. So,
and we just learned that that he and his children they bought some houses on the island and rented them, or had them as they acquired them, and that was rental unit number 1.
Oh,
unit number 1, and it was then that I think his wife was looking for a job. We were looking. The whole island was looking for a library. And it just kind of made sense that, okay, what about putting it together and making a library there? And his son just read, I don't know if Jerry will come with this, but Maria lives in England right now with her oldest son in Brighton. And she wrote a little story about making it into a library, and it was really fun because the kids they did all the painting, they borrowed wood from Dave Nesbitt, they made the shells, and they made like this house into a library. It wasn't like that, and they worked on it all summer or something. It was really quite the story,
Yeah.
And
I think that Maria sent those things to Peter, like by phone and so on the phone. She
right, and so
got some interviews on the phone. So,
and then she got the job, which worked out very nicely too for her, and then it worked out good for Carly, because when she was looking for her first,
because she, I think, wanted time off sometimes, and I walked in the door and somebody was there who must have come from Central Services, I guess. I didn't know. It was a beautiful sunny day, and I'm going, wow, this is such a nice place to work. You know, the otters are playing outside the window and everything. She said, oh, would you like to have a job? Well, yeah, that sounds good.
That's the way to get
I started
jobs.
doing that for a couple summers before Maria retired.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right, because you could have just one librarian in a library then, which is not the case anymore. And then Kathleen, it just so happens that Kathleen's sort of an extension of my family from another time. And she said to me one day, you wouldn't know of any jobs on the island, would you? And I said, well, actually, I think, because now Maria's gone and Carly's head librarian, and I said, you know, I think they need a page or something of her at the library. And she went and bim bam boom, she got the job. It was like, that's the way to get jobs.
Yes,
those
it's not
days.
like that anymore.
And look, she stayed all those years and retired and ended up driving Bookmobile.
Yep. And I remember when I was interviewed, and one of the questions was, and you know, how long do you see yourself in this position? I'm going, a year? That seemed like really a long time. I mean, sure, some fantastic thing could happen at any moment and I would be off in the South Seas. I don't know.
And instead, what, 26, 27 years? 28, 29? How many years?
How many years
For
have
you?
I been working here?
Yeah. It was
36.
Oh, 36,
so.
that's what
Yeah.
I know. The other thing is that Carly's not saying is that they said, so what's your favorite children's book?
Oh, yes,
That
yes.
was
Oh,
funny.
that's the only question that I could answer.
Right.
Because it was a salmon for Simon.
And her son's name
Have
is
you read
Simon.
it? It's just a lovely, lovely book. And my son's name is Simon, so I really enjoyed that. And
That was the hook. That's how she
yeah,
got the
I
job.
could be enthused about that question. And I still recommend that to people. And I've got a copy of it at my house. And Rye's girlfriend came over, and she's an Alaska native, and she saw that book, and she's looking at the kid on the cover and go, that looks like me. You know? Kid's in a native village up in BC on the beach trying to catch a fish.
And were you just talking about Kathleen Neese?
Kathleen Neese, yeah. Kathleen Neese when she came here. Yeah.
And she got married in the library.
At that library there, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Hard. I remember being interviewed, and I think Sally Kintner.
The
And
great
Robin
Sally
Barker.
Kintner. Did you both know Sally Kintner? Fabulous.
Yeah,
Fabulous gal.
I know. Yeah, so they were the two interviewers, I believe.
And John Halliday, the director then, that was the first director when I came aboard as secretary. I ended up being secretary of Foyle back then, and I just kind of stayed for 25 years as secretary to here.
The
And-
secretary with...
Well,
with,
mover and shaker, but I didn't have to be president.
Yeah,
But
but still doing everything.
yeah, that's fine. That's fine. But it's good. And took all my notes by hand, and they're still here in all the books.
Really good minutes, and actually those minutes are fun to read. They're not like the minutes now. Here are the facts.
No.
You included interesting little
Yeah.
things in those. Let's see. The challenging things about the job. Well, I guess I really didn't know about any connection much with CS, you know, like, and the first time I had to go to a meeting, I was going, oh, wow, this is really weird, and kind of intimidating. And I'd go in and get books sometimes, and I remember it was really dark and dusty and everything back in the stacks, and you'd go back there and I feel like I was going to faint or something in there. It's like, oh, this is really strange. And so we didn't have the connections that we do now, you know, where it's like, I'm out of paper towels and everything. And so I like bring toilet paper and stuff to the library and mow the lawn, climb under the building, fix the plumbing.
And that's because we're unincorporated. Because us, like Deming and a few other places, we run our own show, and we're not a township or anything. So a lot's left to the Friends Board, but the Friends Board have always been incredible. I know that's a question later, but it just goes without saying that a library like this on the island just couldn't exist without a Friends group that just keeps it happening full time, all the time. And you know, people leave and then good people come aboard, and like Brooke, our new head librarian who's coming, she was here as a page when the FOIL president who we have now, Joan Kuiper, she became president when Brooke came, and so they had this nice connection. So now Brooke's coming back and Joan's already knows her. So that's a great thing, because you have to work in conjunction with the librarian, and so we're really pleased.
That's great.
I think the most challenging thing about the job when I started was the overdues. Because you have all the cards from the books all filed, you know, and I enjoyed the filing. I felt like I was living in the past.
The
ABC,
yeah.
And flipping the cards in there, like playing cards. But then at a certain point, things would become overdue. And then it was a matter of sending everybody a postcard. And so you can tell how overdue things must have been by the time I got around to sending people a postcard or whatever. So the system for actually requesting books and everything got really bogged down, I think, you know, and you have to get the books back from wherever they are. So there were a few drawbacks there.
And now you've come all the way to when kids don't get fines at all.
Yeah.
I know. So.
And things when they don't arrive instantly, you know, people are going, what? I'm supposed to be getting this now.
I know.
It sounds like it must have been challenging for things to be so personal. You know, now with the computer system, you kind of can say, it's not, you know, it's beyond my control. The computer's keeping
Or
track.
you can see sort of what's gone wrong, that like this hasn't been returned or this or that, but then it was a lot.
You mean people looking themselves
Or I
on
mean,
it?
Well, we had a card catalog people would look through, and they'd request something, and then you had all these little slips of paper, and they would go into the administration building where they had the master card catalog with all, and it would say where the books were at this point, like in which branch, and then you'd get these little slips of paper and try to find the books.
It's a lot of brouhaha.
So that was a little tricky.
but in such a small community, when someone's books go overdue, was it just felt more personal to have to send them a postcard, or you know, run into them somewhere?
Like, did you feel
mention
bad?
Their overdue.
Well, people did see me coming and say, "Oh, I gotta go to the other side of the street," or whatever. I don't know.
Unlike me at school, I just want to say I actually went to a few kids' houses and had to find the book myself, because as we all know, there's nothing lost. They're just hiding.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But he knows all the places to look for.
I always told him it was between the bed and the wall.
Yeah. So I just felt like I was kind of, you know, the whole steps of getting the books back, you know, to send them a postcard and then whatever, a letter and so on. I think I would be kind of behind on that. But, oh well.
Oh well. They're all here.
Now we're on top of it. The computer does it.
So that's kind of getting to the next question about technical changes.
Yeah.
Are there other things that have changed a lot during your time?
Well, of course we did get our first computers, and that's when after we had moved in here. And I think that went fairly smoothly for us. I can't recall anything.
A lot of us had to learn how to do it. Some people had, you know, had computers. Just we're starting to have computers.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, and yeah. So for patrons, I think it just slowly caught on, but over time it got a lot more complex. But it wasn't any, you know, it was a little bit worrisome, like, oh dear, am I going to break the computer? And I remember patting the chair saying, oh, don't worry, it's not brain surgery. And I go, oh yeah, I guess, you know, what's going to go wrong?
I'm still
and
surprised.
I never did break the computer.
I'm still surprised when people sometimes come in and have a little list of books and have you order them for them, and I'm always thinking, why aren't you doing this yourself? It's like, but some people still are.
There are a lot of people that are still
like just won't do it, and they even have maybe a computer at home, and they just don't order books on the computer. They just want somebody else
or
to do
they
it.
might know how to order on Amazon, but then they don't really know how the library catalog works or something, you know, so that happens.
Which is pretty much user friendly. So
yeah, but it's always fun to help people
yeah,
learn how to use it, and then I don't know if they remember the next time, but it's a real eye-opener too when they do figure out how to use it, and then they can just get really carried away pushing buttons.
I know, start browsing.
Yeah, so that's fun. And then we recently had a renovation, and I think that's because we had ongoing issues with ADA access, and we had a whole upstairs
There was a
room.
step down to the children's room, and where the books were in the old furnace room, and they had to be carried up a step, and that was not okay. And so
Yeah, and we couldn't really use that upstairs space. And one of the main things was programs. Whenever we had a program, we had to push all the circ desk and computers and everything back into a corner, and then go out to the barn and get the chairs and set up the whole place to do a library program.
And there was a lot of library programs
Yeah.
because we were paying off the building, and we did a million different kinds of programs.
Yes, it was a major ordeal.
And my Jerry Brown, did a lot of pushing and shoving. Now you will notice that everything is on rollers.
Yes.
And so when we have a program here now, everything rolls right into the teen room. But then it was like really a lot of moving and shoving.
Yeah.
But we did it and raised a lot
We were
enough
younger
money.
then.
Well, we were younger, and we did it because we raised the money to pay it off.
Yeah.
So
that's probably a lot of it.
right, and the room upstairs it was kind of used at your own discretion, but it had issues. You know, the narrow stairs, the treads, and kids.
Yeah, they weren't
and
legal. Oh yeah, and the kids sneaking in.
yeah, kids sneaking up there. We'd find books down in the couch up there, you know, that you were missing because they were in the couch, and it was time for it to be in one level.
Yeah, and Joan Kuiper, the Friends president, I think she and
Diane Harper, who came in here. They were the movers and
shakers.
shakers.
The treasurer, and they just worked great as a team and made this happen and talked to donors. And Diane was the building
Supervisor, contractor.
Yeah. So yeah, that took a while, but they were really good at getting donations from people and made it happen. And now they're working on the barn back here, and
Which money was raised, and it's not the barn's the exact same footprint, but it's going to be really nice, insulated, lighter, the shelves for the book sales, but children's programs can be in there. No, it's going to be great.
Yeah,
it's going to be great.
So we'll have storage in there too, which will be really
And I believe the archives may go in there.
Yeah, they might make a little spot for the archive. Well, there have been some memorable programs. One that I remember is when Kathy Galvin and I thought we could make all the food to serve like 150 people on a dinner cruise. And Buffy, did you get Terry Buzzard's boat to go tour the San Juans and stuff, and we would have a dinner cruise? Well, Kathy is a very creative, wonderful friend. And so we came up with the menu, and we had roasted all these turkeys and made this Indonesian rice salad and all these things. And we got the food together and we got it on the boat. But we were down in the galley, and then it was sort of like, oh, now you've got to get all the food served to everybody. And it was like, and there they had free use of alcohol there, bottles of alcohol. And so they were all getting hungry and like, where's the food? And there's no way we could get the food up there fast enough. So Sandy McCandless fortunately came and helped us, and people were fed. And I remember popping my head up once, and we were going around in the harbor at Susha, and I go, oh, that looks really pretty. I'd like to see that someday. I still haven't seen it. But Buffy, you did the whole sailing.
The Zodiac.
Trip.
You know the Zodiac, the old sailing ship in Bellingham. Anyway, we did a cruise from that, and as a fundraiser, and that was really fun. But we learned our lesson. Everyone brought their own dinner, but we had a buffet dessert. That's what Foil members and people did. But I ended up in the galley the whole time in that, making more coffee, because one pot of coffee is not enough when you have like 50 people. But that was really, it was really fun. But no, we did some incredible shows. We travel shows, but just people on this island have gone incredible places, from Tierra del Fuego to England to look at crop circles to
Nepal, Mustang, trekking.
It's just incredible, and people always come out for shows, and they still do shows, and they still get a good crowd, and it's just it's amazing. It's
we've had some great author visits.
Jim Lynch.
Yeah.
He's like this with Lummi Island, because there was a woman on the island who let him use her house to write.
To finish the border
his
song.
book.
Yeah.
And so, he kind of loves us and we love him.
And the sailboat in the book is just the same as the sailboat that Jerry Brown is building in their barn. So he had to come and look at that sailboat.
Anyway, it's just people come out for shows. We try not to do, even now, not too many in the summer because it's summertime, but in winter, it's...
Yeah, and we used to have lots and lots of kids programs. There were a lot more kids back in the olden days, and there wasn't anything
for them to do.
Really.
It was before social media. So it's really coming out for a show like making a mask or making a little Valentine's present for your parents, or...
And I remember the one that it was connected with the summer reading, program, and it was something through history, and we had all these different stations that different people helped kids do different things that would have been done historically. And one of the pictures is of Don von Valkenburg doing calligraphy with kids, and Janet was baking bread over a fire, and the Phillips, Dan and Tom Phillips, they were teenagers then, and they built catapults. And so we had the books were delivered by mail in boxes then. So we had all these empty boxes. We'd stack them up and make walls, and then we'd use the catapult to knock them down. That was pretty fun. So there were some good times there.
No, and kids remember all those programs, and now those kids have kids.
Yeah.
But times are changed in all libraries. I mean, there's still a few programs. Tammy LaPlante's still with us for a couple more years. But we even, we've used other buildings. We went up to Scenic Estates once, and we played crazy library trivia games.
Yeah.
Anything that we could do to make a little money to pay the bills and keep things going.
I think in one of the games, you have the name of a author taped on your back, and
you ever play
could
this
ask
game?
people questions about
only yes or no questions.
Like trying to figure out guess who they were.
Like say it was Jim Lynch, and then you would say one of your first questions might be alive or dead, and male or female maybe doesn't matter so much, or fiction or nonfiction, or oh, do they write for a publication or are they a book author? And you get like 10 questions. And if you get, by then, if you figure out that it's that person, you get like a little star, and then you walk around, and for each one that you get right, you get like a little star. And then you get a new person on the back. But it's a fun game.
Yeah.
It's a good game.
We thought of all kinds of creative things to do. We've had a history of strong support from the Friends group, and it's always been a really dynamic group. Oh yeah, and there was quite a bit of fomenting about the Christian fiction labels. You know, like, why should that religion get their own label? What about, you know, everybody else? Yeah, so that was...
Why aren't there other labels for other genres?
Yeah.
But that's not...
That was kind of an ongoing thing for a number of years, and then people just had to give up. And
that's not really a Friends thing. That's more of a CS thing.
Yes.
But which is interesting, just still to think about.
Yeah.
Why there are certain labels for some things and not. But it has to do with the books that you get.
Yeah.
But really, I would say...
And what people are looking for.
Right. What I would say is that I always, for all my years of working, bringing us here to this building, nobody ever really had anything bad to say, because who really doesn't like a library? If you don't like a library, you don't have to use it, but nobody's making you use it, and really everyone loves it, and they know that it's like the heart of the community. Yes, there's the school and the Grange, but a library is a library, and you have to... I mean, people have moved here to this island because they read online about this library. And they do, and people have come from afar because, oh, I heard there's an incredible library there, and it's part of Central Services, which everyone knows is an incredible library system, and I just don't think there's ever been...
It's improved like crazy over the years. There's been a lot of changes in administration. Like, it's a lot bigger now, you know, and so it's sort of like, oh, it's like when you're going to college and now you've got like 6 different bosses or something, you know. It's like, oh, how did that happen? We were all just like independently going around, floating around without very much instruction at all, like how to do the job. When I started, like, oh, okay, I guess I'll do this or whatever. And then now it's like there's more instructions every day from every corner. It's like, well,
and meetings to go to for you, right? And those meetings to go to,
meetings
and things
to go
like,
to, yeah. But it's been, you know, I think it was daunting, you know, the change at the beginning, but now it feels really good. Like we're a real cohesive county, and with lots of communication and support for each other, which is really awesome. That has really made things so much better, rather than just feeling like we're on our own, just trying to muddle along. That it's collaborative and we can get help from each other. So that's been a real good change. One of the questions on here was about a memorable patron, and I thought about Tichelle.
Oh, Tichelle. Totally.
Yeah.
There was that picture of her, Rachel Tichelle.
Yeah. And
she was a Trekkie,
yes.
I'm sure, to this day.
And I still have the book she wrote that's a spoof, a Star Trek spoof that's in the teen area. And so she just pretty much lived at the library.
She was from across the way, and on Gooseberry Point, and I believe her father was blind.
Blind, yeah.
Yeah, and she just had an interesting upbringing, and the library was open. She was here, and she was homeschooled, but she ended up going to the U.
Yeah, And
she found her on Facebook one day, right?
So many things, you know. I think she learned to fly. She was into the Japanese tea ceremonies.
She made swords.
Yeah.
No, I'd be curious to know what she's up to now.
Many years later, but I'd love to see what she's doing now.
She will have. I mean, she's just going to be in her 40s probably now, right? 30s, 40s,
40s.
I know.
Think, yeah.
It'd be great to see her. She was just.
Yeah, she was always
a good spirit, always in a good mood. Just loved everybody. Just
full of interests and questions and good humor. We've thought about outreach to the tribe, you know, as far as being able for people to live on Gooseberry and walk to the library would be really a great thing. And it's happened a little bit now and then, but not a whole lot. The tribal members have come over to do programs here that have been fantastic. I don't know that the library has done very much over there, though now they are taking, doing the Connect Ed with the schools to get books into the Lummi Nation school, which is going really well, and the kids are just so delighted and happy to be getting books. But that's something to work on, is to have to get more interaction there. And
one thing is that, like, the kids come over from school, like, we probably have 10 tribal families that come to the elementary school, but then when they're little, and so when they get chaperoned to go across, they all go, so then they don't stay unless there's
they do
a program.
come to programs.
If there's a program and then somebody takes
but they don't
them,
just come
they
after
just
school
don't come
to
like
hang out.
other
Or
kids.
other times,
Yeah,
So.
but their library is happening now. I mean,
Yeah.
doing good, and the school library.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then there are, it's nice to have a variety of libraries to go
Yeah,
to.
Erna Gregory Topi, who is a page here, she's the head librarian at the Lummi Nation School. And they needed somebody to kind of whip it in shape and get it together, take them to the computer age. Nothing had been on a computer, and she's done it all, and she's done really great, and it's wonderful. I mean, the kids were just dying for good books, and she's really making it happen.
Maybe she could get the kids over on a field trip. We've had other...
she's asked us to go there too, and I keep wanting to go and see her library. We should go together.
Yeah.
And see that.
Take a look. It's
But
really
no,
nice,
it was, it needed help. It needed somebody who just would come in and be organized and do it, and she's the perfect person for this job. And I think they're very happy with her.
And another thing that we've had over the years is teachers from Bellingham bring kids out on field trips, because they can take the bus for free, the city buses, and the ferry for free,
ferry,
and then come over to the library for a story time and so on. The finding accomplishments are getting the buildings. From going from a rental, from a bookmobile to a rental, to actually having...
And we couldn't have ever done it really in the beginning when we were raising money if, I should just say that we did a lot of programs. We raised money. We sent out, it was one of the first computers on the island that Lorraine and Dooley had, and we actually sent out a letter. We canvassed the whole island and said, would you make a one-time donation, or would you make 3 pledges for the next 3 years? But we raised money, but we still just needed a lot. We went to every bank that you could think of, and nobody would lend us money. And 3 island families came up and said they'd all give $30,000. And that way we had the rest of the money, and then they would be paid back in order. And we did it because they wanted to be cashed out. Les Shanahan and Carol Stewart wanted to be cashed out, which made sense. They were moving on. And so we did that. And one of my proudest things is we did that whole thing without a lawyer or a bank. We just did it with a handshake, and people trusted each other, and it was really incredible, because that's not how it is anymore. Those days are over, and now everybody, has a computer, and it all is different. But the next group did it all and did the expansion, and it's beautiful. And
and for the future, we just wanted to get better and better.
I know.
Get more people in, and more things happening, and with
I guess it would
new
be
manager,
kids.
we'll have.
Would it be kids?
It would be nice to have more kids, but I think there are starting to be more families out here again.
Yeah, more families. And then, you're vying for all that other time they have now, from soccer to social media. It's very tricky. It's really tricky. But their parents use it. But it's that age, But they'll come back around, hopefully.
Yeah, and it's always great when somebody walks in after many years and tells stories of the great times they had at the library. So,
or I'm one of those Friends members that keeps our open hours and a little blurb about CS in my car, and I made a new family, and I'm like, hey, we got, and that's good. That's what you have to do. It's like welcome wagon.
Yeah, new people, more people.
Yep. Yep.
We'll see what happens next. I want the bushes to grow big.
And Curly and I are now just patrons. Isn't that nice?
Yes.
Lovely. Most memorable.
The whale wasn't really a library event, was it?
I don't know if it was a library. I
Just
just
a
did
community
it.
event.
It wasn't like a money maker. We did do that. It was fun though. But see, I got people through the library. I mean, the library's the hub, you know, if you want to talk to people or do things. But we made a blue whale out of people in the real size of what a blue whale is. And we did it in the school field. And a photographer, Sharon Granger, she got up on a ladder and then took the pictures that we have in this little book of everybody in the shape of a whale. And then our friend Julie, she drove her little Volkswagen Bug through it and parked it, and that's the size of a blue whale's heart. And so the kids got to really see how that was. Anyway, things like that.
And then you put the quarter in for its eye.
Oh. Anyway, you know, just things like that. It was simpler times, but I don't know, you know, I come to the library all the time. It's just, every day is a good day when you have a library. It's my favorite place. People go, oh, you're at the library. Like, why wouldn't I be here?
Yeah, we used to draw our posters and everything.
Yeah, yeah, all the posters were done by hand. Yeah, it's just, but no, it's wonderful.
Makes
We're
us
really
feel pretty old now.
We're pretty fortunate. We're pretty fortunate to have such a great library, and I think CS is just fabulous.
Yeah,
library
it's
system.
Just getting
and
amazing.
when I first moved here, I saw that little blurb that said, there are this many people, I wish I still had it, this many people in Whatcom County, and it was not that many. And we're like the most readingest county in the United States for per capita. And I was like, really? That is great. This is Snappy. Snappy Dragon, the Littersaurus. And we had a contest for all island kids to name the dragon, and he had a thermometer here that showed how much money we had raised while we were here trying to pay off the building. And 2 kids on the island,
Christopher
Sandy. Eklund Nunn and
Sandy and Harmony,
thought of Snappy and then the Littersaurus, and we put it together.
So it's Snap E Dragon, the Litterosaurus.
And he's been here all along, and kids come and they all have their picture taken with their families.
Yeah, you see in the summertime the people are all lined up in the ferry line, and people are here having their photos done. And he gets various attire. Sometimes he gets a scarf in the winter, or a flag for some particular program or something. Sometimes I've seen people out here spreading a blanket and reading. So, yeah, and we've got lots of pictures of the kids with Snappy, mascot, our beloved mascot.